You're good.
Oh, good.
We are going.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
That was good.
All right, we ready?
Yes, we are.
Hello and welcome to the first NNC debate of the Golden Eagle of Liberty campaign. Woo! We are live in front of America. Yeah, that's right. Let's take it up to the stage, and we'd like each candidate to prepare and give their opening remarks and opening statements. Let's start with Old Pete.
Alright, so are we just going down the list about where we stand?
No, just opening statement.
Just like say we are in your party.
So right now, we're getting ourselves together, and we're taking a more diplomatic approach towards foreign affairs. So that's going to be our big plan there. But also, another thing is that we're not going to let things slide as easily as they have been. So we're going to put our foot down when needed.
All right, thank you very much, Old Pete. Let's go right here to Senator Beatty.
I'm Ryan Beatty, running for the Premium Party. And as you can see today, I'm bringing the hammer. And that's a little bit of our policy. You know, we're going to stick to our guns. We're also going to be diplomatic about things. We want to smooth things out and stick to our guns. That's what we're going for.
Thank you very much.
As the party of natural rights and the protection of the peoples, aka the Banana Party, our stance is one of humanitarianism, and our belief is that not only should we take a more diplomatic approach, only using violence when absolutely necessary, but rather to help those civilians who are affected by foreign affairs, wars, and conflicts, and to offer aid and refuge for them.
Thank you very much.
I am Ray Hyra, candidate for the Harmony Party, and as far as our fundamental stance on military philosophy and international involvement, we believe that we should emphasize maintaining our position as a prominent world power and using that subsequent money and influence for diplomatic use and the promotion of democracy and support for international relations between the U.S. and other countries.
Thank you very much.
I'm Karin Young. I'm an advisor to Scott Ray's Lao Party. We're taking a bipartisan approach to our campaign and including both ideologies into our decisions and beliefs. Yeah, there I am.
There she is. All right, very much. Let's keep this debate off right. Let's start with former Secretary of State Ray Hyra. Madam Secretary, what is the #1 threat facing the United States abroad, and what is your administration's strategy in combating this threat?
I'd say that our greatest threat as far as involvement in foreign diplomatic relations is the lack of unity within the United States as a whole and our fundamental government. The issue of partisan politics has become a huge detriment to our ability to relate to other countries and to be able to enforce and promote democracy and avoid unnecessary warmongering while maintaining peace in countries that are both our allies and potential countries of conflict with the United States. And so for our focus for our party is to increase the level of bipartisanship within the fundamentals of our government to be able to work more cohesively as a whole in order to create progress.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Governor of Oregon. Same question. What's the #1 threat facing the United States abroad?
I would agree with many of the policies put forth by previous Secretary of State Hyra, in that our partisanship and plurality in our government is causing problems with our efforts to put forth foreign policy, but as a specific problem in our foreign policy that we can target. I think our relationship with North Korea currently could be much, much better. Under our current administration, we have alienated and ostracized any hopes of de-escalating conflict through diplomatic approach. As we can see, South Korea has extended an olive branch to North Korea, and they were working out a possible conflict resolution. And as such, I believe that the United States needs to take a similar approach instead of trying to show off and let me use a kind of flash in the pan saying here, a show our guns approach. I feel we should extend an olive branch and say, if you scale back so-and-so, in this case I'm talking about our nuclear arms, we will also scale ours back in an effort to create a more peaceful and welcoming environment.
Thank you very much. Let's move to,
Former Senate Majority Leader.
Senator, thank you, former Senate Majority Leader, Ryan Beatty. There's overwhelming evidence of Russian interference in our 2016 election. Yesterday, Senate Judiciary Committee released their findings that Russia indeed meddled in our election in favor of one particular candidate. The Russian investigation has also led to 13 Russians, 4 members of the Trump campaign, and 2 others being indicted on federal crimes. What is your policy in regards to Russia and their role in the 2016 U.S. election?
Well, it is an obvious attack on our democracy as a whole, and so I believe that we have to have a very tight will and iron grip on their insurgency upon our democracy, and for our to keep our sense of democracy of which we have in the United States, I feel like we have to punish those who impeded upon our democracy. So I feel like the criminal charges brought forth on the Russian spies and those in the presidential party, I feel like it has to happen. It has to be allowed.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to Senator from Indiana, Old Pete. Much of our sort of discourse, if you will, we see Congress very divided on this Russia issue and their interference in our election. In particular, we see the Senate kind of unified in their collective approach, but we see a very different response on party lines in the House of Representatives. How do you plan on uniting Congress, and or what is your campaign's approach to Russia?
So with Russia right now, they've stepped some lines about like putting troops in other nations, but going back to our elections, that we as a Senate have tried to form together so we can control this problem with the presidential election. So no matter what the outcome is, we as a Senate will keep that under control. But if I do get elected, we will work to have more secure borders, not like immigration-wise, but like from spies, what's happened in the previous election, to prevent this from happening in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Young, this question is for you.
Hey.
Hey, what's up? Governor Young, excuse me,
All right.
of
Yep.
California.
That one.
Much of the presidency as commander-in-chief is about responding to unexpected challenges and crises. For instance, George Bush, during the unexpected attacks of the trade towers on 9/11. How will you respond to such a crisis, and what is your belief in the use of military?
Let's see. Okay, don't have anything on this. So, I don't have anything on this. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't have anything on the military.
Okay, but how would you respond to crisis? That's
Well, we want to be there for the people. We want to provide for the people in any way possible so that the people are protected and are safe from harm. We of course don't want to like infringe on their privacy or of course respond with heavy military, of course, we're just trying to protect and retaliate in a good manner.
Okay, thank you, Governor. Let's go to the Governor of Oregon. This question is for you. If you are elected, you bring up North Korea. If you are elected president, assuming a summit takes place in meeting with Kim Jong-un, what would you be willing to concede to denuclearize the North Korean peninsula and why?
So, denuclearizing the peninsula is a very important thing to my party, to me. I think talks of scaling back our own nuclear arms in exchange for them scaling back their nuclear arms, considering we have 3 times more the amount of the next leading contender in terms of nuclear arms, which would be Russia. I feel as if we are overstocked on our own, so it wouldn't be such a drawback to scale back in terms of the same manner as North Korea. Also, to ask them maybe subsidize some money, and also see if we can open up that border as if North Korea and South Korea have been talking about, and see if we can stop the more tyranny and dictatorship role that he is playing there, and see if we can open up that border and get the people there some help. As I said, I'm much more humanity and humanitarian based, and I'm thinking, yes, about the larger scale, we do need to descale our nuclear weapons, but also there are people whose rights are being infringed upon, natural rights are being infringed upon in North Korea that we need to target.
Okay, would you ever in your policies agree with the position of escalating conflict there as far as like boots on the ground or anything?
Escalating conflict, I feel, would only be as a direct result of a North Korea declaring war on us.
Okay, what about an invasion of the South?
An invasion of the South, I think, would also be a considerable time to possibly send in troops, determining on how far North Korea has attacked the South and how much help the South seems that they need. Because the South Korean government, as of now, their military does not seem as strong as ours, and if they need backup, it will be supplied, but only as a last resort.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Secretary Hyra, would you be willing to concede American troops in South Korea in exchange for denuclearization in North Korea and ultimately the Korean Peninsula?
I think that could be a possibility as far as action taken by our party, but as far as engaging with North Korea in diplomacy, I believe that the first step should be to add a U.S. diplomat to South Korea, since they are a main ally, and it is much harder to deal with South Korea and North Korea if we don't even have an active U.S. diplomat to the area. The U.S. does not currently have an ambassador to South Korea still. President Trump named Mark Napper the U.S. charge d'affaires ad interim to the country in 2017, which is only a temporary diplomatic position in lieu of a presidentially appointed and congressionally approved ambassador. And I feel that that is the first thing that needs to change if we're going to begin making progress with South Korea or North Korea. And I believe that withdrawing troops from South Korea, as they are our ally, would only be used as a last resort before either the declaration of war or positioning of troops.
Awesome, thank you very much. This question is going to go to former Senate Majority Leader Beatty. Senate Majority Leader, some have coined you a Ronald Reagan for the 21st century. And quote, a breath of fresh air. Others have characterized you, Brian Beatty, Senate Majority Leader, as dangerously lacking experience.
Oh, interesting.
Can you speak to these concerns?
Absolutely. As one Ronald Reagan once said, if you can't make him see the light, make him feel the heat. So, my position as a leader within the school of nearly 4 years, I would say that I am very, very experienced in the matter, and also partaking in my position as a Senate Majority Leader. I would say that I am very experienced in my positioning, and what I have done for this school, and what I will continue to do for this school, speaks for itself.
Thank you very much. Senator Old Pete of Indiana. Recent polls are indicating enthusiasm in voters in the Midwest, including evangelicals of your campaign. Yet polling has also suggested historically low numbers of female support for your campaign. How are you going to go about addressing the lack of support of female voters for your campaign?
So our campaign, we're working for helping one community at a time. So with that community, we want to start small, like again in the Midwest. And so the families, those families together is how I'm looking to get support. All traditional families there, all unite as one to help my
Do we have a question? Just one? Oh, no.
Well, don't families have women?
But communities have women in it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, you can't just
That's
have
what I'm
men.
saying.
Continue.
Also, we picked
Security.
one of our advisors,
okay.
Chloe Whitbeck, to help support my campaign. But within these small communities is where I'm looking to get help
Hey.
higher women vote.
Okay. Senate Majority Leader, this is back to you. The Syrian conflict is a quagmire. Alliances, human atrocities, ISIS, extremism. Is it in the best interest of the United States to get involved in this conflict? Why or why not, and what is your strategy?
I believe to some extent it is in our best interest to go in and try to prevent the loss of life. That being said, we have to be very careful in what we do because of Syria's ties to Russia. We'd have to, I would believe, first go in and make diplomatic ties to Russia and come to some sort of an agreement to then further increase our influence within Syria. I feel like we have to take some sort of stance, and I feel like that stance is we have to change something. We have to change it now.
And did I hear there's diplomatic ties with Russia? Can we trust them after what they perpetrated on our country in the 2016 election?
I believe we have to, because if we go in without diplomatic ties to Russia, we threaten a World War III, because Russia actually supports Syria and their current leader, and by going in without their permission or without some sort of an agreement, we do threaten, I believe, conflict.
Candidates, I see some of you shaking your head, or do you have different policies or thoughts? Feel free at any point to interject in anybody's comments.
Not quite a different policy. I do agree with Senate Majority Leader that we have to prevent loss of life. And I feel like trying to go with a diplomatic approach to Russia is admirable. I think that could be very difficult. And as far as I have analyzed it, we already have a role that we are playing in Syria, and I agree that it must change. Currently, the U.S. has over 2,000 troops on ground in Syria, and we have recently called in an airstrike on Syria itself. I think our target of our focus now should not be more violence and fighting. As Beatty said, we could provoke a sort of World War III, to put it in the most violence of terms. What I can tell, what has happened in Syria is the result of many different conflicts of interest, starting with the Arab Springs, and between the rebels, which we have backed in the past, and the Assad government, which Russia, as Beatty has currently said, is currently backing, as well as many other smaller groups in Syria. And a lot of this kind of dissolvement of the government is created through drought, famine, a mass movement to cities, and a dissolvement of the government, which is too unstable, which caused to the civil war. and a lot has to do with religious differences as well. So there's many different things we can tackle to alleviate this issue rather than straight violence. And I think supporting aid to those citizens in Syria who 6 years ago weren't even thinking about war, and were just living their lives peacefully. So, like I said earlier, being open to refugees and being able to send aid in either terms of what monetary we can give them, water, food, shelter. But also if we can help instate a better running government, that would be preferable, but that does require a lot of violence and should only be, as I said earlier, a last resort. Yes, I said that right the first time. So I think violence for violence, as I have seen quoted, violence for violence is the rule of beast. And if the Assad government has, gas to their own people, I don't think it will help them any if we take any more actions to airstrike civilians, which just causes more death and violence. So diplomatic approach does seem very difficult concerning these extremist groups. But I feel backing civilians, making sure they're safe, should be our first priority. And that's my opinions in terms of Syria. Sorry, I just commandeered that.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, what do you think the United States' role on these Syrian refugees should be?
I believe that since I also agree that military action in Syria should be kept as a last resort, then the focus should be mainly on civilian aid, which includes taking in more refugees. Near the end of Barack Obama's presidency, the U.S. resettled over 15,000 Syrian refugees, according to State Department figures, and also sourced information from the NPR and State Department. In 2017, that number was 3,000. So as far as trying to aid civilians who are just trying to escape from the conflict in their country to be allowed in to start a new life, to be able to be free from that conflict, I believe that a focus should definitely be to allow more refugees into the country. And for many critics of that policy that believe that that will lead to an uncontrollable increase in terrorism, that in part is representative of a lack of faith in our system as far as allowing refugees into the country. Applicants are first screened by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, which interviews applicants and assesses their claims. Then, if they are accepted and designated for possible resettlement into the United States, applicants are then vetted by the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, the FBI Terrorist Screening Center, and the Departments of State, Defense, and Homeland Security. And as a result of post-9/11 changes to criminal statutes, because bars to admission include crimes committed outside of the United States, and crimes for which individuals were never arrested, applicants for any type of status in the United States, including refugee status, are barred if they have provided any material support to terrorist groups, even if they were not a member of a terrorist group in another country wanting to become a refugee and accepted into the United States. If they provided any sort of material or monetary support, they would be prevented from entering after being screened by the before mentioned federal groups.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Secretary, do you believe any of these rules that refugees are put through in terms of screening are unfair?
I believe that for the sake of trying to increase the civilian aid effort in Syria while maintaining focus for national security within our own country, I believe that as long as there is no evidence of cruel or unusual behavior or treatment to the refugees trying to gain access into the country for citizenship, that these groups, these processes are fit to be maintained unless otherwise noted.